Well, namaste, beautiful souls. This is an impromptu live, isn't it, Chris? I didn't even let anyone know.
No, we just jumped on this morning to share some messages about upcoming conference and thought, why not go live instead of putting it out there a bit later on when everyone's tucked away in bed.
So, yeah, look, we love our UK friends, our Canadian friends, our American friends, our friends in Europe, but this is more for the Australian crew. But hang around if you want to have a listen, because and we've also got students, of course. I'm leaving out Asia. So many of our students are through Asia as well. Actually, my health has got graduates, trainees all over the world, Chris. So we love you all. But yeah, this one, hang around, because we are going to get a bit galactic later on. So if you love all that kind of thing, because my post yesterday, Chris, people are just like coming out of the woodwork. I'm getting emails and everyone's saying they want to message me, because there's just so many questions that have come up around this whole concept, I guess, with soul evolution or devolution. And of course, the devolution cycle is very real. So we're going to talk about that a bit later on and just recap on something we've spoken about before, Chris, about vanquishing. What happens to a soul when they're so deceptive, so devious, so quote unquote evil? You may not like that word, but their soul has to go on regressive timelines and really get the choice at that point whether they want to keep their individuated soul consciousness, or whether they want to return to the all through, maybe a rock, sand, still vibrating with consciousness, but at some point, I guess, needing to surrender the fact that they have misused their gift with the human vessel and the free will that they've got. But we're coming back to that, so stay tuned if you want to know about that. But Chris, we're talking about this conference that we're speaking at next weekend. So that's why I say this video is more for our Australian crew. And this video really is about old way, new way, and where we can go in terms of our awareness of where the timeline has led us today. Chris, we are currently on the Gold Coast. How would you describe life on the Gold Coast or any modern city, Western modern city on Earth at the moment?
Well, it's a blend, really. I mean, we've all come from somewhere with regards to our age bracket and our timeline. So we do have ancient energies in us, ancient qualities, ancient skill sets that we have brought through to today. So you see modern cities today is really a cross-pollination. It's a melting pot of all of those, I guess, experiences that have led. What we sort of see more in the cities is where we've taken our new way into, whether it's technology, AI, all of that sort of scientific type arenas have really gone to it's like the speed of light in some ways. That's more where we're concentrated on in our development as far as the major cities are concerned. Whereas old way, would have been more about a day-to-day, necessarily like a survival, hunting, gathering, getting the firewood, making sure we've got something for the children tonight. It was a far more, I guess you could say, vagabond type relationship where they were very much in their area where they would wander. Cities, we're very grid orientated. We don't wander too far. I mean, what I've noticed particularly in the cities is they're they already have kind of set up kind of like mini villages within your suburbs. So, you've got your Woolies and your Coles and all the different types of things that you have access to, but they're only within that, 10, 15 minutes from you. So they're kind of locking you back into, well, you don't need to travel too far. You only need to do this. Now, we might look at that from a convenience point of view, and there's no, it's not hard pressed to understand that. Yes, it is convenient to a certain degree, but what it also does is it kind of locks you into a city area where you're not expanding your skill set either, unlike the old ways where you would have to kind of have life experiences. You're off into the unknown. Whereas here we have the known.
We have the known. And look, if anyone, and I know people listening here are aware of the 2030 agenda, which includes the 15-minute cities. So Chris is saying the grid system, we would see that in a consciousness cycle as a Tron system. Look at the movie Tron if you're interested in that. So we're basically becoming avatars within a video simulation. Everything is driven by the AI. There's pinging coming off those false frequency towers. You start to get in your own repeat orbit. We call that the Groundhog Day effect. So you're not actually creating anything new. And so you're becoming robotic within self. Now, this is a real thing. You'll look around people that are asleep, hypnotized by their device, walking along the road. It's already here. People say this is a future timeline. No, there's just some of us that are operating in a perhaps slightly different timeline, viewing that timeline. But we're all here concurrently, all timelines overlapping for those of us who are inhabiting Earth at the moment. So that grid system, again, it could be said to be a smart city. At what degree is it smart? Now, it depends what lens you're going to look at anything through. And Chris and I will never tell you something's right or wrong. Evolution happens primarily guided by the divine force. It is so divinely intelligent, it knows what it's doing, even as it's showing you the inversion. Because if it's not showing you the inversion, it's not going to propel you to go on a different journey. Now, not everyone's going with you on that journey, and that can be the difficult thing, particularly as we come to what's known as the end of ages, the end of the epoch of time here on Earth. It very much looks like a bifurcation, a split. Some people wanting to really head down that AI timeline, with glee as well. Like they're excited. Come on, get that next bit of device. Come on, this is the upgraded technology. Let's get it. But it's only ever mimicking or mirroring, in a second-rate sense, your own personal divine technology. So that's, you got to think a bit more sort of like, a bit more cleverly, I suppose, and understand what you're being shown so you don't get in these trapping systems. Now, Chris, you told me the other day, and we're going to talk about you just coming back from Vanuatu, so we'll get to Old Way. You told me recently about this AI system called Gemini, and wow, that really woke me up as to what's going on. So I'd love you to describe that. And hello, Dr. Beautiful Alicia Main. Guys, make sure you follow this amazing woman. She literally talks to animals. She makes me feel more sane in this world, I've got to tell you. Did a beautiful healing on our own dog, Coconut, didn't she, Chris? Just definitely. And he is going on 16 and thriving, absolutely thriving. So there's the proof for you. But this woman, she's also on our My Health TV, and I can't rave about her enough. So glad you called us on the Impromptu Live. All the way from, well, I think Aspen, Alicia. I think you're from Aspen, so wow. But yeah, let's talk about Gemini, Chris.
Yeah, there's only an advertisement that I heard. I can't recall exactly where I heard it, but look, I work in an industry also outside of, what I'm doing right here, right now, that is very technologically advanced as well. So I kind of have a lot of insights into both sides of the spectrum here. And AI definitely gives us, once again, ease and comfort to do things a lot quicker. It's instead of, for an example, writing an old letter, it might take you 2 or 3 pages to write a letter, which might take you, 5 or 6 hours, depending on what you're trying to say. Then you've got to post it, put a stamp on and send it. These days, you can pump an email out in 30 seconds. So it has its advantages and its disadvantages. And that's like everything in this world. So it's just depending on how you use it, how it impacts your life, and pretty much, as I like to say, how much you're using it as well. Because if you've got your head in your device 15 hours a day, then, you might want to sort of reassess that. Doesn't mean you can't have it in the 5 hours a day, 4 hours a day, whatever it takes. But yes, getting on to Gemini. Gemini is another one of the formulae out there that is voice activated to the point where it's a communication program. So you might be used to, say, like a chat GPT or these types of things. Chat GPT doesn't necessarily talk back to you per se. Whereas these new, moving forward, it's voice activated, so you can ask it a question, a bit like it's like an upgraded version of Siri. But from that perspective, these programs have had a lot of dialogue and information poured into them by human hand. So in other words, as an example, it might be able to read 3,000 books in 5 minutes, whereas a human's not able to do that. So its ability to data collect information that has been past, present, and future here. So if you ask it a question, what's the temperature going to be today? It'll go bang, 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 spit out and give you a diagnosis on what the temperature is, what the humidity is, when the sunset's going to be. So it'll go over and above. So from that perspective, it's kind of like a brainiac. But once again, the brainiac side is a program. It's a program of what human experiences have been. It can't think for itself. It's only a data collection. So it's only going off the information that it's fed. But what it's doing is it's providing information to people, which might seem on a very superficial level, like, how do I make a beef stroganoff? So it'll give you a recipe. But then people start to go, well, I'm feeling really blue today, Gemini. So can you tell me what's wrong with me? And when we start asking devices about our emotional state of mind, and we start to lose our mind-body connection, where it's only going to give you a formulae that was written by a white coat somewhere in the middle of Europe, because it read that text. So from that perspective, it's generic. The information, it's not consciously deep, and it doesn't go into the psyche of understanding how you feel. So some people might think, oh, it's technology, it's a friend, I've got someone to talk to because no one understands me. Well, there's a reason there for you for that as well. But it's not someone that is going to comfort you at a time when, joy is happening or a crisis is happening. So integrating into these systems, I think we take with a bit of a grain of salt, understand what it is and what its purpose is, instead of relying on it to be a comfort zone, a friend, a point of contact. It's not necessarily that. It's mainly more there for information, which was really why the internet was invented back in the first place. It's just that we've, if I can say it, we've kind of bastardized the internet and what its capabilities are over a long period of time. It's become far more interactive.
It's a rotation. So as Chris is saying, it's an information that already exists. So divine intelligence is always asking you to push the envelope of your consciousness journey to be the creator here, not to be the regurgitator. Now, if you're a regurgitator, you're half dead already. Gemini and these kind of things, they seem slick, but they're mimicking what is the operating system or the mind system that we all have. Now, we can even become more advanced in that. But Gemini and ChatGPT, and again, we're not saying anything's right or wrong. You'll never hear us say that. There's a purpose and a function for all. But it cannot, what we need to do is look at it very closely and decode it. It doesn't have a pulse. Now, if something doesn't have a pulse, it lacks heart. Do you want to rub up against that robot at night if it's got no heart? It might have fed you some good data all day and you look pretty good, when you're out there in the marketplace. Hey, look, I speak well and I've got all these, these things that I can use to make me seem smart. But you're not at the highest version of your own intelligence when you're the regurgitator of information that's been laid down, as Chris said, probably from, a white coat somewhere. God bless the white coats, but they're in a program. They're in a program and they're trying to hook you always in the program of what is. These are the facts. This is science. Now, personally, I love science because I've been a yogi for nearly 30 years. So there's an ancient science that yoga has that very much appeals to me because it's working from the spiritual layer through the mental body, through the emotional body, and into the physical, into the world of matter. But we work it from the spiritual down, not from the physical world of matter and proof, and then trying to understand the quantum sciences. It's a different way through. So it's always soul nourishment first. Now, if we're in this system of regurgitating and not creating, we haven't actually come online. Our DNA hasn't come online to its greatest degree. And what I'm noticing at the moment, and some people I know are listening here, here's another one just popped up. Beautiful Kim Dickens as well. Kim met her at talking about conferences, met her at a recent conference. Now we've got some very advanced beings here that are listening. And what I'm finding with these people, not only were they probably already streaming about, 12 strands of DNA since the big portal opening of 2020, I'm starting to see these people going like, we're getting into infinite helix type. We talk about the 144 or the 144,000. The way I see it is 144 and the 000 is the DNA, turn it vertically. But everyone's got a different theory about the 144,000, but starting to see some really heavy duty supernatural powers coming online with many people. But then we're also observing, as I said, because timelines are crisscrossing at the moment, so we get to review and view each other and observe. And you're also observing your past self in those regressive timelines that hasn't caught up to where you are. So when you judge those people that are still hypnotized by the devices or going deeper into the Gemini and all of these, you know, they might even have a sex robot, Chris. Some people have a sex robot, Chris. I mean, do you know what I'm saying? I don't think you've tried that one yet, Chris, have you?
It's not on the list. No. Look, whatever floats your boat out there, but no, that's not high on the priorities.
I would be jealous, but then I'd be jealous of a bot. So what's going on? Where are we at?
Okay.
But, you know, you're viewing those people, they're probably still at their two-strand DNA. And you know that you were kind of like them at one point because, like, oh, my God, I cringe sometimes. I meditate so deeply that I cringe sometimes at some of the past stuff I've done. And I'm like, that was me. I can't blame anyone else for that. And I'm disgusted by the behaviour currently, viewing it in others. And then I go, hey, but you were that back there. So this is interesting how consciousness works when you've got your heart open and you're not making anything right or wrong and you're not judging your fellow brothers and sisters. And I can say this philosophically, but that doesn't mean it's easy. So and then beyond the heart too, these AI devices, they don't have, now in the women, it's called the womb. Now that's the creative portal for women. And for the men, I mean, do we say gonads? I don't know. It doesn't sound as romantic.
It's got many analogies, but we can go with that one for today because it's a generic one.
But it's literally for the men where they produce life as well. So
Correct.
it's this, I call it the instinct. What I was showing the other day in meditation is we've got the three eyes. So you got information, that's what AI is mimicking, artificial intelligence. But it's really for the psychics or the healers here, it's our intuition, it's inner tuition. So we've got intuition. Heart, I was told, was innocence. So that's when we look at everyone else and go, oh, look, they're just innocently stuffing up. They don't really know what they're doing to their soul, but they'll find out because the way the karmic cycles work, karma's not good or bad. It's just always going to balance what actions you've taken. So it shows you, it's a waking up process of yourself. And then we're talking about the beginning of life cycles here in the womb and the corresponding region for the men. So sacral chakra, if you're into the chakras, that is your instinct. And I want to talk about instinct, Chris, because I think this is more what we're starting to lose. And if we talk about, you know, you and I live in Vanuatu, you know, half the time, trying to learn old ways, trying to wake ourselves up. What have these guys got in spades? Instinct.
Well, it's innate in them, but it's innate in you too. It's a sacred tool that we were born with. It's part of our DNA. It's part of our positivity, negativity, defense, attack. It's everything. That piece of technology that is innate within you is something that we take for granted. We only usually bring it out in a crisis. And as I've got an old saying, don't waste a crisis. But when it comes to instinctiveness, it really is it leads us into the next chapters of our life as well. I mean, if it's used in a positive context, we can use it to move forward. Instinctively, you go in that direction. Instinctively, you take on that way of solving maybe an issue. So for the Nevans, which is the local terminology for the Indigenous in Vanuatu, they pretty much live off that daily because without it, they're disconnected. They don't understand life as it is. I mean, they're very much in the moment. Now, whether that's, once again, hunting, gathering, food, attention to children, village life when it comes to understanding another person and what they're going through, it's all based on connectivity. And connectivity for them is the instinct, is, you know, they may have a fellow in the village that is struggling, but instinctively they will know that there's something deeper going on. Now, it may be a family issue. It may be, you know, he's having a crisis in his own way that he's not able to hunt as well as what he used to be able to. Maybe his skill set's starting to get deficient. The list goes on. Their problems are no different to Western world problems. It's just it's in a different movie scene. So living on instinct, take that away from them. They might as well exit out of here, because that is their life force. That is what gets them through. Now, believe it or not, in the Western world, that once upon a time was our life force too. That's what made us creative. That's what made us understand where we're positioned in the moment. It also gave us a reason to move forward with regards to our own life experiences. That, because if you're not instinctive and something's happened to you in your life, that you may stay trapped in that trauma, or you may stay trapped in that joy. Excess of one or the other is too much. You can't sustain it. So instinctively, you know that you need to move forward or sideways or whatever way you wish to move. But without that tool, you get trapped in that. That's why we've got so much mental health in the world these days, is instinctively they're unable to move outside of that box that they've created. It's trapping them. It's like a prison. So in answer to your question, it's one of your top 5 intuitive skills that you come here with that we need to use on a daily basis, because trust me, it will answer a lot of your questions, because instinctively it's inside of you. You have the answers. You know the truth. You know what you're meant to do. We constantly tell ourselves that I don't know what to do, or I'm really at a loss, or that's Gemini talking to you, because that's all Gemini knows. Gemini doesn't know how to feel. So don't become Gemini. You are better than that. From that perspective, you do know. It just takes a small piece of time, maybe that's some solitude at the moment, and just go deep within a 5-minute meditation. What's the first thing that comes up? How does it transcend into your feeling in that moment? I mean, these are the little skill sets, the little tools. It's slowly, it's piece by piece. You're not going to solve the world's issues in 30 seconds. So for you're just part of that connection piece to be able to go, well, all right, I have a role to play here, but what is it? And I need to be at the top of my game to do that, because then I can shine. Then I'm more radiant. Then I'm able to make more impact. And all of those feelings are linked to intuition.
Yeah, that's so beautiful. And look, I'll put this pic up again of, this is our beautiful Chief Natu. And I wish I had some photos of you here, Chris, but I don't think it was prepared, but this one was already preset. And what a beautiful soul. Like, for those of you who know how to do energy reading, you just got to look at his face to see just what a kind being he is. And what we find with the tribal ways is not only do they have that instinct, but the heart is just so open. I don't think I've ever been to a place on earth where it's so heart-based. Now, we're talking when we talk about the old way, new way, the conference that we're about to do, old days, new ways, we're talking very old days. We're talking a civilization that hasn't really ever changed since what we perceive as the beginning of life on Earth. There are still tribes that live original way, that don't go to the shops, and some islands. We live on an island where there's no shops. So we have easy access with a lot of them. The Vanuatu's 83 islands, so a lot of them have their little banana boats, and so you can get around and get to the shops. But there are very remote islands where they hardly wear any clothing, where they only live. I was going to say subsist, but let me say live. Actually, let me change that to thrive. This is not about survival. This is about people thriving in a state of joy. Eating, I've talked to some of them that I've interacted with, the younger ones who've got good English, that live on these remote islands, that have gone to school and gone back. And they talk about the fruit. Oh, look, I don't know. The AI's giving me a thumbs down on that one. They talk about the fruit, Chris, how big and luscious the fruit is. And you can't get this fruit in even the organic farmers markets here. This fruit, to me, has been shown psychically as to be the new earth economy. Slowly, there's no rush. We're going to, for those that are going on that old way timeline, which is new earth, there's the there's the riddle for you to solve. That's going to be the new earth economy. So we're going to trade fruit. Hey, look, I've got this fruit. I've got this amazing pawpaw, papaya. I'm going to trade you that for your coconuts. I'm going to trade you that. Oh, so you make old way sourdough bread. Oh, so you make it where it actually ferments for a few days. And so there's no like gluten intolerance and I don't bloat. I'm going to trade you. I grew these beautiful zucchinis. I'm going to trade you that. That's the new earth economy I've been shown. And it's so much easier. And I've asked the guys, I'm like, well, do we still go out to dinner? Because Chris and I love going out for a fancy meal, still. Is that still going to be a thing? And it's like, yeah, there'll still be people, like pop-up places where you'll be able to dine out, or kind of like that old way. Who remembers, like, I'm showing my age, I'm nearly 50, guys, but who remembers progressive dinners, right? Remember progressive dinners where it's like someone would do the entree, then you go to the next person's house and they're going to do the main, the next person's house is going to do the dessert, and then you go to like cognac and cigars, I suppose, somewhere, Chris, Anyway, look, here's another brother from LA. Hope it's all good there in LA, Rama. Rama's been on the show with us. Not that we're doing a show, we're just doing an impromptu live. So, yeah, really good to see you, Rama. I love your music. And, yeah, it's beautiful, Lynn. And Lynn, actually speaking, I know I'm going off on tangents, but I want to interact with you guys. Lynn, she's such a dear friend to me, kind of like an old school pen pal, even though we met on Facebook. You're in America as well. I'm glad we got to connect with the American tribe. So, but Lynn actually is doing let me bring this back up, the live stream ticket for the Awakening Old Days, New Ways. So thanks, Lynn. I'm glad you caught us. And that's the option, I suppose. I did say at the beginning it's more for the Aussies, but if you're in other countries and you want to join us via live stream for this amazing conference, I can't speak highly enough of the other speakers as well. So Stephen Evan Strong, I mean, most of you here probably see me I've done multiple shows and other events with Stephen Evan, and they're archaeohistorians here in Australia. But I would also say, Chris, they're very mystical, very magical, and very galactic as well. So they kind of pull from a lot of different, if we're talking timelines today as our theme, a lot of different multi-dimensional timelines. But they have this ability, because they're scientists, they have to show you the proof. I've seen their Lemurian rings. I've seen their skulls that show definitively there's other beings on this planet other than humans. We're talking, I don't know, we're talking yowies, we're talking all sorts of things. We get into the telluric realms, Chris. We're getting into what's there in Middle Earth. Maybe hobbits are real. Maybe all the things they depicted in Lord of the Rings, maybe the dragons are real. I know, Dr. Alicia, if you're still listening, I know you know that to be true. Some of us see and know things beyond the veil and the AI kind of frequency fence that many people are living in. Now, we've got to get back to those old ways. We've got to get back to the storytelling. And Steve and Evan, they're just incredible storytellers. Now, also Leah Capitelli is there. Now, that's Evan's beautiful partner. So I'll let you talk about Leah, because she's an amazing one too, Chris.
Yeah, she is. I mean, I've only met Leah probably in the last 12 months. But from having discussions with her and seeing her speak at conferences, she's also got a wonderful book out, which she wrote with Stephen as well. She's that kind of, I guess you could say, that new wave of energy that's coming through. She sees the world in a different perspective, which we can all learn from. So, she interacts with her guides and her spiritual partners in a way that is quite fascinating too. So there's always something that she brings to the table, which is quite unique, but has an element to it that is just transformative. It's just like, wow, hang on, that resonates with me. That I get what you're saying. It's just that she speaks in a very eloquent way where she can describe something that we perceive is very complex into a basic format. So yeah, she's a real one to watch in this space.
Oh, she absolutely is. And the thing that I love about Leah she is not afraid to talk about the dark side. Like, she will go there and explain it in a way where we can transcend the usual human judgment. Of course, there are concepts of right and wrong when you're in a polarity realm, which is what we're in at the moment. And there needs to be to the mind, at least, because we need a navigating system to go, okay, well, that's definitely not the pathway I'm going to go down. But there needs to be an ability to zoom out and understand why souls do what they do. And even when they're sabotaging themselves and causing mass destruction for others. So, she can speak the language in ways many can't. So she's just not afraid to go there. She just, and to me, it's the most important insight, because if we don't understand what the inverted self will do and what it's capable of doing, we'll never understand our own intrinsic nature and where our own timelines can lead if we don't really get how consciousness works. If you don't go down into the dark, murky waters and understand the devious aspects of yourself that will mimic others, copycat others, rob from others, do all these things, because actually you're a scared little boy or girl really deep down inside. But you've got all these fake personas. Talk about wearing the masks. I think that whole 2020 thing with the mask, I think it was showing us something. So many people got masks on. Take the masks off. Stop pretending to be someone that you're not, because it's leading you into very dark behaviors. Get on board with being truly, deeply in love with self, even with all the cringeworthy stuff that you've done, as a curiosity factor. Okay, so when I'm up against it, I'm capable of this, this, and this. It's not really serving my highest good. Yeah, okay. Now I'm starting to learn. Now I'm starting to get it. Now I'm starting to choose from the heart how I wish to be a force in this world, knowing that I affect everyone. I affect the ripple effect of my being affects every being on this planet. That's who we are. That's how powerful we are as humans with free will and the creator source energy. When we're not locked into a program, not like where AI is trying to send us back to. We are here, keep reminding us all, and myself, we are here as creators. Whereas Chris, loves the feminine side of the creatrix, however you want to see it, There's the feminine, masculine aspects always operating within self. They seem like oppositional forces a lot. That's why you do your own heading, because one part of you goes, I want to do this, and the other part goes, I want to do this. And it's like, where can they meet? Where can they balance and become one? But that's your Kundalini forces, always going upwards through your chakras, through your spine. It's feminine and masculine. That's why polarity realms are important, because it shows you in extreme sense the opposition that you're up against. But that only ever exists ultimately within self until you come back to cohesion and start to spiral up instead of going on these devolution cycles, that we've been talking about. But yeah, we've got to start really diving into why, and we're seeing it en masse, Chris, just how deceptive and devious and downright stinking evil some of these, world stage players are. If we don't start reviewing their behavior through a curiosity lens to understand that to whatever degree that I still operate with that consciousness, it might only be minuscule, and we don't start cleaning that up within self, the world out there is just going to keep mirroring back all of this horror to us. So you're good at explaining that as well, Chris. I'll let you have a little talk about that.
Well, yeah, what's going on in the planet, it hasn't not happened before. It's really, as you said before, it's like a mirror effect. It's even the energy and how you feel about it. It's not something that's uncommon to you. There may be an event that happens where we haven't seen it before, but the aftermath of it and how you transmute through it, you felt before. So are the events and what's being rolled out becoming more, I guess you could say, absurd, because they have to one better of what was rolled out before. They've got to get more creative. They've got to get more, okay, we've got you, I guess, sort of trapped in a fear state of mind the first time. So therefore we've got to build upon that layer and layer and layer. So it's got to become more perverse. It's got to become more dramatic. So yeah, what we are seeing is becoming sort of more, it doesn't connect to us. It's kind of like, well, hang on a sec. It's like watching an action movie and a guy rides a motorcycle off the top of a high rise. Well, no, that doesn't happen, So when it starts to become, I guess, to the point where it doesn't make sense or it doesn't resonate with you, if there's something odd about it, that the matrix is starting to pull you in like a vacuum cleaner, that you're becoming part of that program. So from that perspective, we do have, once again, intuition to be able to decipher what's right for us and what's wrong. We've always got the ability to say no. You still have free will here. Now, you might find that a difficult thing to say, oh, well, I'm not going to pay my parking fine, I'm just going to say no. Well, in some ways you can challenge that system as well. Okay, it's long and it's methodical and it's bloody boring. But at the same time, there is an end result which may favor you if you wish to take on the long journey in a draconian law. So there are options always that are available. But one thing I always say to people is that, they're only feeding off the energy that's here too. So if you're feeding this by being ultra compliant, and I take that in a grain of salt. And what I mean by that is if you're giving yourself away all the time to what is you're being told, or you're being asked to do, or what the law might be, or how they're wanting you to act. So ultra compliance will lead you to feed the energy that they're trying to create. It doesn't mean you have to overnight wake up and suddenly I become a bloody radical. It's not what we're saying. There is a balance point between all this, and you've got to find that balance point, because being ultra conservative or being ultra aggressive or whatever it might be, it doesn't work either. It's kind of like being ultra, like, I guess in the spiritual world, it gets very trapped, where it has a mirror around it about being ultra loving. Ultra loving is a beautiful concept to have, and you should always stick dear to that within your heart. But if it's being overused to the point where suddenly it clouds your judgment and you see everyone as beautiful, well, the guy that's going to come up and slit your throat behind you that's the part where you're not seeing the full spectrum of why you're here. That's the light and the dark paralleling each other. And I hate to use a graphic scenario, but I'm just trying to make a point that both are important in this context of the world. Otherwise, you're not going to see what's being rolled out in front of you. You need to understand the parallels between light and dark.
Oh, yeah. I mean, you teach that better than anyone. You've taught me that. I can be very extreme. I can be an all or nothing personality. Oh, I've got this next thing, we've all got to reshape and I'll stress the family out, because we've all got to, even the Vanuatu thing, right, we're leaving Australia, we're going to live there. So that's my all or nothing, very impulsive, and I'm a very quick manifester. You only got to look at my business life. People are like, have you done all that? It's like, no, I live in a different reality. I live in the imaginative realm. So once you can feel it created there, it actually anchors very quickly in the physical. It's actually not difficult. It's actually more favored to the lazy people who like to meditate and lay down. So, stop doing so much, everyone. But Chris teaches me that. Stop being all or nothing. Let's just find where that balance point is. Because, I guess as a couple, I take that impulsive polarity and he takes the conservative. And so we're learning, even all these years later, where we can find that balance, not only within self, but within a coupling, in a romance. And you're constantly evolving and constantly growing within that. But when you realize, what Chris is saying, if you can't ascend unless you collapse the polarities. If you're even, this is right, this is wrong, that's a polarity. Rather than, and my mum taught me this, there's a truth that is the overview self. It will overview it. The mind will say right or wrong, sure, but there's an overview consciousness that makes nothing right or wrong, because you're always curious and you're always interested in ascending and in transcending and evolving out of that patterning that you've found yourself in, or even observing, in others around you. So there's always a way through this, and it is through the balance point. It has to be. And this is where, even in my industry, and I know a lot of you in the same sort of industry that are listening here right now or will listen, even in our yoga, healing, metaphysical consciousness industry, we are always up against that love and light crew. And I don't have a problem with love and light. I've been caught in a lot of love and light psyops, psychological operations, where I've even tried to love and light demons away. But it never stopped the demons coming. And I've had some very harrowing experiences in the 3D and the physical with people that are carrying that energy, because I would always be too lenient. I've got the ability to see their heart, their inner little boy or their inner little girl, and understand that they're broken, and this is why they're operating the way they are now. Whilst this person kept siphoning me, taking me down, slandering me, taking me down, until you got to grab that sword of truth and you got to pull in your quote unquote dark side, which will defend you and protect you, and say, absolutely no more, I've had enough. Now, people are scared often to bring in their dragon qualities or bring in, those energies that can breathe fire. That, oh, well, if I go there, I've heard people say to me, but if I go there, Carrie, if I bring in my dragon qualities, that might be it. I might go all the way down that timeline. So what they're saying is they're so enraged, in fact, they don't trust themselves to even open that gate. Man, that's all going to come out. But we have to trust ourselves. We will find it back to the balance. If you're suppressing anger and being love and light, trust me, you do your neck in like, you can't sustain it. You must drop down into the depth of your feeling and all of the feelings that are contained within there, and allow whatever to be felt to be felt. And there's rage in there. There's sacred rage in there. Can't be frightened of that. It creates momentum. I'd be more frightened of not feeling sacred rage, because I'd probably attack someone outside of myself in a mindless state, than actually choosing to be responsible for it and go, let me explore this with self-love and curiosity, because I'm not wrong. Whatever I feel is not wrong. And so it's an invitation then into the depth of who we are. And that creates this balance out there. Consciousness functions. What we're seeing out there is a reflection of in here. So all the victim people around saying, oh, it's them, it's them, it's them. There is no us and them. There is no us and them. There can't be. And that's challenging and confronting, because trust me, as I said, there's some real rotten people on this planet right now that we're observing. But we are the creators that can clean up the mess as well. And it always starts in the inner journeys, always, and in being whole and with self. Now, Chris, interestingly, you did touch on there. I thought that was good. You touched on the Draco law. And one of the speakers here at the Awakening conference is talking about common law, a couple actually, and I haven't met them yet. But that's going to be very fascinating, because we would have to say at the moment that we are governed by draconian law. And, it's a bit of a dog-eat-dog cut law, isn't it? I'll let you, talk from your perspective a bit more about draconian law.
Well, it's an ancient law that was brought into this realm. Probably it wasn't unknown around sort of the Roman era. So I can't off the top of my head know what BC that was. But yeah, so from that perspective, it gathered momentum around that era moving forward. And like most laws, it kind of intertwines and changes, and new legislation comes in, et cetera, et cetera. But from that perspective, laws were brought in even around, I'll probably get censored for saying this, but I don't give a shit.
I'll get censored.
But even around the Knights Templar era, if you do your historical study, that the draconian law was brought. So that particular era was brought in as, I guess you could say, a friend to the property workers, the farm workers, et cetera, et cetera. They were a friend, where they were kind of like the Robin Hood of the era, where they would, divvy out the riches. But where it sort of became a little bit sort of conscrewed around that time was when they felt that, hang on a sec, we're in control of the riches and we're handing it out. So why should we be doing a 50-50 split here? So suddenly the laws got drawn up that, I went and got it and I'm handing it out. So I'm taking a higher percentage, which is really like draconian law is really about taking a mortgage these days. I mean, your interest rate goes up. They're like, hey, I'll provide you some money, but I want something in return. That's kind of where the ethos of it came along, and it's really integrated into our society quite a lot now. So, even when you're asking your next door neighbor or your best friend for something, there's always something in return. So we've suddenly started to become part of this new system as well. It's like, well, if I mow your lawns, what are you going to do for me? So I'm not saying that there shouldn't be a bartering system. There always should be an equality to that transaction, but sometimes things are done off the cuff out of love and respect, and just out of human empathy for people too. You don't necessarily always need to have something in return. So the Draco law, or the draconian law, which was brought in, which is part of our legal system today, or the judicial system as well, it's as ancient as you can understand. The fundamentals of it haven't changed a great deal. There's still persecution, punishment, you will be held accountable, responsibility, etc., etc., etc. That's all the foundations of that particular law system. So I wouldn't throw the baby out with the bathwater. It's not like it's the worst system in the world. There are, like everything, there are some positive aspects to it which we can transcend into our new laws moving forward. But a vast majority of it is about power and control. It's about creating narrative, and we're going to protect the narrative because there are consequences to it. And that's always been its fundamentals, is that you step out of line, there will be a moment in time where we hold you responsible for that, and we will hold you either monetary responsible. Back in the olden days, it was probably with your life. So, those sentences have become more lenient, from having to have executions in the public square to jail sentences to, fines, etc., etc. So that's a quick 101 in kind of where we are today with that. But it does get transcended, changed all the time. I mean, I'm sure you've been to many places, whether it's the shopping mall or driving your car, and suddenly there's a change in the law. I didn't realize that I had to wait 30 seconds before going through the green light. Now, that's a law that they would only roll out after they've fined about 40,000 people with it, because it's a slow integration. That's an extreme example, but it's just giving you how fast these things can move too. It's why it's very difficult to keep up with it. And a lot of it, often we say, but I didn't know I was doing the wrong thing, because they'll only publicize it in a very minute way of streaming it out too, because they can't get the monetary effect for it if it's highly publicized. So there has to be this integration period where people are held accountable, and then they suddenly become the victim to it. And then it becomes known that what the law is starting gathering momentum. So hopefully that's not too much of a ramble, but
yeah,
that's the basis.
Yeah, no, it makes perfect sense. And a great comment here. Hi, Keith. And yeah, that's so true. It's, and there's also, like, we can look at the law in terms of, for those who are more on the psychic side, healer side, again, a lot of people that are here listening to this kind of video. But you will know there's galactic courts. It's literally galactic courts. So, in the galactic realms, it's more how energy, frequency, geometry works as patterning to rebalance what's going on. But within that, you can certainly see in your third eye, you can certainly see forms, characters, representations of certain people here on Earth, what their galactic form looks like. So it's very interesting how there's always a balancing effect going on that way. And of course, then there's the omnipotent, cosmic law, which can never be broken. And for us yogis, we call that the law of karma. Now, I know that people misinterpret karma as something negative. It's not what I'm talking about. For yogis, the law of karma is the law of balance. It just means always that yin yang is going to find its homeostasis point again, but it will explore the outer edges. It'll explore polarity, as we talked about earlier, depending on the dimension that you're in. It'll seem lost to itself when you're a polarity realm, like you're pulling too far apart, the classic good versus evil, until it moves back to the center point. Now, if you think of a helix, you can only, as I said earlier, you can only ascend through the center of the helix. It's also true that sooner or later you can descend as well through the center of the helix. At some point, if all your bad behaviors, if you're a narcissist in this lifetime, it stacks up energetically, and it draws you like a whirlpool, like a vortex, back to the center, and you'll start going down Jacob's ladder. You'll start to descend down, where you see Jacob's ladder as your own spinal column, the scales of consciousness, the scales through the spine. There's different ways of interpreting these philosophies, but you can go on a regressive timeline, and it's done to yourself by yourself. There's really nothing externally other than your own consciousness wielding its own trajectory through based on your thought, word, and deed. Now, your thought, the thoughts that you have, just because you thought someone was an a-hole, but you didn't tell them, didn't mean that energy didn't go out there, you know. And you can call someone an a-hole in your mind. I'm not saying don't do that, but just be aware that that energy is available for all to tap into. Even people who aren't psychic still carry psychic energy, still carry a hunch or a knowing, hey, that person doesn't like me. So thought, word, your spoken word. You know, we talk about abracadabra, we talk about the spoken word. That's what we're talking about. It's creating your reality every time you speak. And deed is your actions. Your actions will. It's just, this is why we have to talk about karma, not as a negative. It's just balancing. It's circling back to you to show you yourself, not because you're even wrong. If we are coming from a purely cosmic perspective, you're an innocent being having a consciousness experience. You are making a ton of mistakes, falling down, waking yourself up over and over and over again. If you can not chastise yourself internally, if you can be the curious observer, if you can love yourself no matter what, you will naturally start spiraling up the helix, because you won't be in a narcissistic cycle where you have to take from others for survival. You can sustain self. You can draw consciousness, pure stream into self, and that, you know, your electromagnetic waves start to switch on. You give out, you receive back. You give out, you receive back. Now, it is the truth of who we are. We are electromagnetic. It's just some people haven't cottoned on that they're creating their own bad realities. And they, therefore, many of them, when things are tough, they drop deeper into the Maya, as we call it in yoga, the illusion, which is the victim consciousness. Oh, it's so hard. You know, whinge. It's everyone else's fault. I'm a good person. I don't know why I'm being punished. You know, I mean, I do it still. I get trapped in my own victimhood, and then I start to look for the exit out of that because it doesn't feel good. I don't want to stay in that space too long. I let myself go there, but I don't want to stay in that space too long. I want to rise out. I want to be the creator again, or the creatrix again. So, you know, it's upon us where we're going to move within that timeline. But just to finish this off, because we said we'd talk about this with the concept of vanquishing. Now, you can go back to my post on Facebook from yesterday and just have a look at the comments, because they're very intriguing. A lot of not only confirmation from other grid workers, psychic workers of, you know, the work that we're all doing, all of us, not just me, all of us are doing collectively across the planet as our nodal points, you know, connecting up. We're the real internet, I think, the love net, you know. But this concept of people curiously, honorably asking me questions about explaining more what vanquishing is. And I have to tip my hat to Chris, because he's the one that first introduced the concept to me. He'll often bring through concepts, and then I'll go into meditation and get more information. And we share back and forth and decode along the way. Obviously, we've both been teaching this for a very long time. So we do have a lot of, you know, background in this area, but I just want to remind people, we are also still learning, because consciousness, like we said, we're not regurgitating information. We are evolving together. We are pioneering together. We're all bringing through very important pieces of the puzzle, and we must listen to each other and allow that puzzle piece to come back together. But just to close us off, Chris, the concept of vanquishing.
Yeah, vanquishing was messaged to me or shown to me in it was actually first in an astral journey, which was a few years ago now, but it's also been quite prevalent in a lot of astrals that I've done as well. It keeps kind of coming forth, and the explanation for it as well. So a lot of us have probably heard about the galactic courts and galactic law, et cetera. Once again, it's a mirror effect of what's happening here. I mean, Earth is part of the galactic. So when it comes to that, yes, there's a lot of similarities that occur here that are also out, in inverted brackets, out there. It's not necessarily a persecution or a punishment that we would probably know more about here in the 3D. It's an option of where someone may need to be sent depending on what actions they've displayed. So if you take the word vanishing, it's not the end, it's disappearance is what it basically becomes, because that's what, if something vanquishes, it's no longer there, it's not in your line of sight. So that in the galactic courts, nothing is about eradication, everything is all about a reset. So therefore, it's like, if you can imagine as a child, the game of snakes and ladders is suddenly you spend most of your life trying to roll the dice to go up the ladder to the next level. Sometimes those levels become very toxic and they become very unenergetic matches to you. So sometimes we slide back down based on what we've done or our actions might be. Very simple to the vanquishing scenario is that you will have spiraling effects and despiraling effects. So if you are in a position where the vanquishing judgment is put upon you, particularly in more of the galactic realms, it's asking that you go back to a reset. Now, a reset may mean that it takes you back to a point where a traumatic event occurred and it might have changed your sliding doors approach to life. So in other words, you suddenly set off on this journey and became a narcissist. You suddenly set on this journey and became, someone that, a criminal or a pilfer, some pilfers people's money or whatever the case may be. I'm just using 3D examples. So from that perspective, it will take you back to that nexus point where you need to become, I guess, a nothingness again. So you will go back to simply, whether it's a rock, a spark, an atom, a flint, and the journey begins again to get you back to that point where that, I guess you could say that that decision was made that took you into a position where you probably didn't need to go down. So the vanquishing is an interesting perspective because it still has life force in it. It gives you opportunity. It gives you a secondary look at things. So you can go to your hall of mirrors and you can sit there and go, okay, then maybe that wasn't my best decision, but it was a decision that was made in the moment. This is where I always come back to balance point or equality, that there's never a right or wrong moment in your life. And maybe extreme moments and non-extreme moments, but at some point you will have to pay the karmic approach to that. And karma and vanquishing, they go like a glove. So it's holding you accountable. Whereas in the 3D, we lie, we bitch, we moan, we carry on, and we think we get away with it. Well, in a 3D world to a certain degree, but at some point that question and that resonance that you expelled on planet Earth will be asked of you to reset. And vanquishing is an option. You do get a say in it, and this is the thing about free will, is you do get to explain your version of events of why it led you there, and what, more importantly, what was your intention? Even though it was through the viewfinder, they saw that it created chaos and trauma for everyone. There may have been a different intention. So this is where, I guess, the galactic courts come into, because from their point of view, they want to hear your version of events versus what their version of events are, and somewhere in the middle we come up with a reasoning. So I guess, to cut a long story short, vanquishing is not the end. Vanquishing is, as I keep saying, it is a reset in your consciousness to go back and explore how you can evolve in a far more pure way, because our role here is to work through our dimensionals to get to a point where we are ascending and not devolving, because the amount of snakes and ladders, ascend, devolve goes on, is mind-blowing. At some point, you've got to break that cycle and find your exit point. And a level in vanquishing and some stasis there at a period of time may find that you don't need to hit the repeat button. And that's the beauty of it as well, because you can look at it and go, oh, I don't want to be vanquished. It's like, well, we've all been vanquished at some point. It's just about remembering, because if you look at where your level of consciousness is today, your level of growth came from somewhere. You know the darkest pits and you know the highest lows. You are part of it all. You know right from wrong. It's that simple. So from that perspective, yes, it's why it's familiar. That's why you understand the terminology, and we're just trying to put some context around it. That's all.
Oh, that's just beautiful. And, vanquishing from the perspective of the divine is a gift, because some people, when they've got into their hall of mirrors and seen just what utter evil, chaos, destruction they created, to become the rock again and to become part of the group consciousness that is peace, it is a relief at that point. So, you know, there's all these fail safes put in by the divine that you don't forever stay in a horror loop, even of your own creation, that there's a way out. And we've got all of eternity to explore how consciousness functions. There is no time per se. There's only the here and now and the outward reflection of where our consciousness perhaps is at. And now that can seem like not fun for some, but it's okay, because the cosmos is always in a state of flux. You never get trapped, held, or stuck anywhere. And you're the creator, remember. You don't have to rely on anything outside of yourself to change the channel of where you're at in your life. You know, you're the creator. You're the producer of your movie. Your script is grand. No matter how many mistakes you've made, there are ways, if you ask earnestly, if you ask to the heart where the divine lives, show me the way, you will be shown. You will all be shown. We'll all be shown. And, you know, I see another huge wave of awakening just rippling across Earth. You can see that now just in your mind's eye. Just see it ripple across Earth, so that everyone draws themselves up their own helix or their own Jacob's ladder or their own spine. You know, get to the heart, stand tall, get the heart open, love. Now, love is both fierce and kind, but it is love. So just to round us off, just a reminder of why we decided to jump on today. Look, Chris, we've been talking for an hour. That doesn't surprise me. But it's so great. There's so many people just, you know, were available, you know, to be here with us, and we can feel your energy and fantastic comments. Love it. But look, there's the little, what do you call those things, Chris? QR code.
QR code.
If you want to come either in person, it's Bundaberg, it's in Queensland. Think of that term, Queensland, Old Lemuria, here in Australia. For those that are interested in that kind of energy, you're going to get a lot of information about the true heart portal of Middle Earth that's rising at the moment. We didn't get to talk about all the speakers, but we've got a beautiful Indigenous elder, one of our original people, Auntie Trudy, like just wow. I mean, and Auntie Trudy, she's just going, I can't even put it into words, just watching what she's been doing. But she's been on the Billy Carson show and everything. Like, Billy Carson would have, I mean, millions of followers. So she, you know, like, she said her mum was a seer and told her when she was a little girl that she'd end up, you know, talking to millions of people. And she is. It's happening in real time. Because a lot of our original people won't talk publicly. They certainly won't go online, and some of them won't even get their photo taken. So these are brave souls. These are brave souls. And I want to remind everyone, when you look at an original person, make sure you're looking at them with eyes of love. I would never, ever consider that you would look with anything other than eyes of love. If you want to receive their blessings energetically, make sure you see them clearly for who they are and why they're here, because they've got the stars literally still in their blood. And this is why it's important to get here in person, because it's an activation just to be with Auntie Trudy, just to be with her, just to get a hug from her or just be in the room with her. So if you can get there to Bundaberg, you know, jump in the car, do what you've got to do, fly in. There's an airport. It's close to Lady Elliot Island if you want to take the family and then go over to the island. I would be doing what I can to get there. But otherwise, you've got your live stream option as well. So do what you got to do with the QR code. Get it into your phone. Click, have a look. Donate if you can't make it, because, you know, everyone's doing it for free. Obviously, we're still doing all this stuff for free, Chris. Like, I'm not saying we don't have an income. We do, so we're fine. But for years now, we've been doing so many lives, shows, conferences, you know, cost us airfares or travel, you know, whatever, to go around and do all of these things. And that's fine. We made that inward choice in 2020 to kind of step out, I suppose, from the kind of little safe little bubble we were in at My Health and go, all right, we'll get a bit more public here, because there's a lot at stake. But, you know, there's so much shit that goes with it, because then you get censored, you get trolled, you get people say, oh, you're just trying to sell. Well, Actually, no. I mean, if you want to buy my course, I'd be very happy. It keeps us going. But no, we're just here serving as selflessly as possible, and getting initiated through our own process of I guess, Chris, getting a little bit more public, and all that comes with that. But it's certainly not a popularity contest here on social media for us. In fact, sometimes you just want to run from it and close it all down. But thankfully, there are just the most beautiful souls that we get to interact with. Here's another one, our beautiful friend, Raylene Brady. Done heaps of shows with Raylene as well. And in fact, if you want to talk about the Galactic realms, I think Chris and Raylene, they were besties. Besties in some of the past life memories those two have with each other in other dimensions. But we are closing off, and we'll see you at the Awakening Conference. One way or the other. The codes will be going out there, guys. One way or the other. Love you all. Mwah. Namaste.